Hi, welcome to valuationpodcast.com, a podcast and video series about all things related to business and valuation. My name is Melissa Gragg, and I'm a valuation expert witness in St. Louis, Missouri. I have the pleasure of discussing pink-collar crime, fraud, and embezzlement with Kelly Paxton, who is a private investigator and certified fraud examiner in Portland, Oregon, or I just learned, Bend, Oregon. And I think that creates kind of, where do you not see it? Does fraud happen in all industries, all types of companies? Do you see any prevalence? Obviously, cash-based businesses, you're going to see more of. But what about other industries?
So I love LinkedIn, and I think that's how we met. But I did this, and I love putting content out there and I like to make it fun, because if you remember, you're going to remember it because it's funny. And so I did a Stump the Embezzlement Jock like this last summer, and it was name an industry that hasn't been embezzled, and I'll send you it was a coffee cup. And oh my God. So the person who won was a lawyer, darn it. And it really, I think he pushed the envelope. Snake wranglers. Now, there is no snake wrangling association, so I don't technically think that that's an industry. But every industry, circus performers, rodeo, every industry, it happens. And yeah, certain industries it happens more in than others. But just because, say you're in, rocket ship building doesn't mean it can't happen to you because you have a bunch of rocket scientists. I would say it might happen to you more because you're way up here and you don't think about the stuff down in the weeds. So it can happen in any industry. Wherever there is money, embezzlement, pink collar crime can happen. All it takes is money.
Well, and you were saying only 15% gets reported, which is interesting to me, but also the reality is, can all fraud be detected, determined, quantified, proven?
Well, like you said about cash is the hardest because it's kind of like white collar crime statistics. You're trying to prove something that you don't really know for sure. So cash is really the hardest. You're in valuation and it's like there's averages, or it's like, okay, so for the rolling 30-day average, we were taking in this much cash, say it's 10x, and now we dropped to 1x. Well, but the cops, that's why cash is really, really hard, because cops need to see cash. And they need to see the money going somewhere. So what's interesting about these cases, and okay, I am not nearly as smart as you because I can barely figure out EBITDA, but these cases are, and I heard someone describe it as old school. They're old school. Money is here in the business and it goes here to the suspect. It doesn't go to Panama. It doesn't go to Liechtenstein. It doesn't go to cryptocurrency and then here. It goes from here, maybe to a gift card to here. These are paper cases. They are just document intensive paper cases, and cops do them. And unless you're an IRS agent, a cop doesn't become a cop to play with pivot. It's just, we have to keep it kind of simple, and the money's here and it goes here. And that's why cash is really hard, because people don't generally put cash in their accounts. They just spend it. With COVID, it's a little different because a lot of places aren't taking cash during COVID. But I'm watching The Sopranos right now because, we're binging during COVID. Right. And, listening to Tony Soprano talk about cash and him seeing it, I'm like, cash is hard. It's hard. So, yeah.
Well, and I think it's some of it's just not traceable. Some of it you could spend a lot of time, effort, money, but you can't prove it. And I think that's where it takes some, it really does take somebody kind of wanting to prevent fraud to come in and say, okay, where are the opportunities? Where are the areas that were something could happen? And then how do we stop it? Because those are the areas that everybody needs to focus on, but they don't, because they have this trust. A lot of people rely on trust, and I don't think that business and trust should always mix. But I also have a theory that in times of trouble, so if you look at any times 2000, 2008, now you're going to see a huge uptick in fraud. Why? because when everybody's making money, no one's paying attention. And now when every dollar matters, they'll be like, wait a second, where did the dollars go? They could have been missing for 5 years, but now all of a sudden everybody's paying attention because money is tight, business is tight, things are dropping down, expenses are still there. But nobody always talks about that. So in times of issue, you have a fraud that you now find out. What do you have to do as a business owner okay, so my employee stole from me. Now what? Do I have to file something? Do I have to go to my insurance company? Do I have to investigate this? Like, those are kind of the unknowns from a business owner.
Yeah. So, what's funny, another hashtag, trust is not an internal control. Trust is really smushy. But so say you find or you think there's an embezzlement. This is like the latest sort of thing that I say is, you walk into your house and you find a dead body. Are you going to touch it? No. You're going to call 911 as you're running out the house or the office. But someone might think that something's going wrong and they're going to dig in all sorts of stuff. You're touching a crime scene. Mm-hmm. And you have to understand that. So I had a woman recently who owned a business, $500,000 embezzlement, and she found me via pinkcollarcrime.com. And it turns out she kind of lived by me. And so we got to meet in person. And so I'm talking to her and I said, well, you could hire me. And she's like, why would I hire you? And she's like, the cops are going to do everything. And then I have an attorney who's going to do everything. And I'm like, okay, so the attorney costs way more than I do. It's just FYI. And the cops, it's not always this way, but I worked for a big corporation and the cops got tired of prosecuting employees behaving badly at the big corporation. They're like, if you can't manage your own employees, tough luck. We've got dead bodies to do. There are limited resources. And because I have a law enforcement background, I can go on behalf of a business to a law enforcement agency and sell a case. Because you know what? Sometimes, truth be told, the cops, they're not going to care. They're going to say this is civil. A lot of times law enforcement will say this is a civil matter. Let your attorney handle it. When it's not a civil matter, but you have to educate them as to why it's not a civil matter. Now, I had the fortunate opportunity to work at a law enforcement agency that understood a lot of stuff was criminal and not civil. But you go to a smaller law enforcement agency, they're going to say, this sounds like a business dispute, go hire a lawyer. Whereas I can bridge that gap. So the woman's like, well, no, I don't think that I need to hire you. Well, I'm still talking to her and I'm basically saving her money because she's not having her attorney learn on the job. Because do you want to pay 2X or do you want to pay X? And I do this all day long. Mm-hmm. So when I get a business owner who's been ripped off, there are shortcuts and there are things that are reasonable. The other thing is I'm kind of a fraud therapist. They're really upset. They are, unlike Bernie Madoff, Bernie didn't have a lot of engagement with his victims. These are people that have been in your office sometimes for decades. It's like a marriage gone really, really bad. And they're also like, how did I not see it? And then you second guess yourself. Mm-hmm. So I'm kind of this fraud therapist. And I did this presentation a long time ago. A dentist had been embezzled $1 million over 10 years. And he and his wife, went through the process. I helped them. And the wife and I did a presentation together. And I said, okay, you need your attorney. This is your fraud team. You need your attorney. You need a CFE forensic accountant. You may need a computer forensics. You need law enforcement. And then she's like, excuse me, can I add something? And I was like, sure. And she's like, you need a therapist. And she goes, hardest thing she and her husband had ever been through. Because you know what? He's like, why didn't you see this? And she's like, why didn't you see this? And so, I joke I'm a fraud therapist, but I've seen it so many times. And it's not like a pattern, but there's grief. There is grief. There is depression. And the best thing a business owner can do when they find an embezzlement is to hire the right people and to get back to work. Because this, we're not cheap.
Mhm.
But you've got to be able to make money to pay us,
Mhm.
because if you know,
Yeah.
it's hard. I've had cases where it's going to put them out of business, and I'm like, how can I charge them when it's going to put them out of business? And it's like, it's really hard to do it.